Hello, second graders. I'm going to read the third chapter today called Escape. But at the end of the second chapter, I reminded you that I would probably have to explain to you what a barn cellar was, because that's where Wilbur went to live on the Zuckerman's farm. A barn cellar. This isn't something that we have a lot of these days. So I wanted to show you a picture that has a barn cellar. So I'm going to quick bring this up and show you how this would work. So this barn that you see here has top level, and that would be where, if you came in on this end, you could get in through this door. But there's a basement, and it's because of maybe like a hill. This is a lower part, the bottom of the hill. This would be called the barn cellar. So there isn't, a real fence and pen there set up. But in the story, this would be kind of like the area where Wilbur would be. And they talk about how upstairs, or the main floor, is where some other animals are. So I thought that that could be a way to understand where Wilbur's at. Okay, now this chapter is called Escape. And I'll get going on it. All right, so the barn was very large. It was very old. It smelled of hay, and it smelled of manure. It smelled of the perspiration of tired horses and the wonderful sweet breath of patient cows. It often had a sort of peaceful smell, as though nothing bad could happen ever again in the world. It smelled of grain and of harness dressing and of axle grease and of rubber boots and of new rope. And whenever a cat was given a fish head to eat, the barns would smell of fish. But mostly it smelled of hay, for there was always hay in the great loft up overhead. There was always hay being pitched down to the cows and the horses and the sheep. The barn was pleasantly warm in the winter when the animals spent most of their time indoors, and it was pleasantly cool in the summer when the big doors stood wide open to the breeze. The barn had stalls on the main floor for the work horses, tie-ups on the main floor for the cows, a sheepfold down below for the sheep, a pig pen down below for Wilbur, and it was full of all sorts of things you would find in a barn. Ladders, grindstones, pitchforks, monkey wrenches, scythes, lawnmowers, snow shovels, axe handles, milk pails, water buckets, empty grain sacks, and rusty rat traps. It was a kind of barn that swallows like to build their nests in. It was a kind of barn that children liked to play in. And the whole thing was owned by Fern's uncle, Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman. Wilbur's new home was in the lower part of the barn, directly underneath the cows. Mr. Zuckerman knew that a manure pile is a good place to keep a young pig. Pigs need warmth. It was warm and comfortable down there in the barn cellar on the south side. Now, you've heard the word manure a few times, and those of you that aren't into farm background, you have to know what manure is. Manure is in barns when animals go to the bathroom. Their poop and pee, mixed in with whatever bedding, the straw, and all that kind of stuff, is what we call manure. And it's just a natural part of animals' life, and barns have it. Okay? All right, here we go. Fern came almost every day to visit him. She found an old milking stool that had been discarded, and she placed the stool in the sheepfold next to Wilbur's pen. Here she sat quietly during long afternoons, listening and thinking and watching Wilbur. The sheep soon got to know her and trust her. So did the geese who lived with the sheep. All the animals trusted her. She was so quiet and friendly. I'm going to show you the pictures here. Mr. Zuckerman did not allow her to take Wilbur out, and he did not allow her to get into the pig pen. He told Fern that she could sit on the stool and watch Wilbur as long as she wanted to. It made her happy just to be near the pig, and it made Wilbur happy to know that she was sitting there right outside his pen. But he never had any fun. No walks, no rides, no swims. One afternoon in June, when Wilbur was almost 2 months old, he wandered out into a small yard outside the barn. Fern had not arrived for her usual visit. Wilbur stood in the sun, feeling lonely and bored. There's nothing to do around here, he thought. Now, this might be the first time in the story that you're noticing Wilbur has thoughts, and you're going to notice too, Wilbur will talk. Real animals don't do that. So this story has fictional parts that we would consider fantasy. Animals thinking and talking. You'll see that that's going to be a part of the story too. Most of it seems pretty realistic, but there are these fantasy parts. Okay. So he walked slowly to his food trough and sniffed to see if anything had been overlooked at lunch. He found a small strip of potato skin and ate it. His back itched, so he leaned against the fence and rubbed against the boards. When he tired of this, he walked indoors, climbed to the top of the manure pile, and sat down. He didn't feel like going to sleep. He didn't feel like digging. He was tired of standing still, tired of lying down. I'm less than 2 months old, and I'm tired of living, he said. He walked out into the yard again. When I'm out here, he said, there's no place to go but in. When I'm indoors, there's no place to go but out in the yard. That's where you're wrong, my friend, said a voice. Wilbur looked through the fence and saw the goose standing there. You don't have to stay in that dirty little yard, said the goose, who talked rather fast. One of the boards is loose. Push on it, push on it, and come on out. What? Said Wilbur. Say it slower. At the risk of repeating myself, said the goose, I suggest you come on out. It's wonderful out here. Did you say a board was loose? That I did, said the goose. Wilbur walked up to the fence and saw that the goose was right. One of the boards was loose. He put his head down, shut his eyes, and pushed. The board gave way. In a minute, he had squeezed through the fence and was standing in the long grass out in the yard. The goose chuckled. How does it feel? She asked. I like it, said Wilbur. That is, I guess I like it. Actually, Wilbur felt queer to be outside his fence with nothing between him and the big world. Where do you think I better go? Anywhere you like, said the goose. Go down through the orchard, root up the sod. Go down through the garden, dig up the radishes, root up everything, eat grass, look for corn, look for oats, run all over, skip and dance, jump and prance. Go down to the orchard and stroll in the woods. The world is a wonderful place when you're young. I can see that, replied Wilbur. He gave a jump in the air, twirled, ran a few steps, stopped, looked all around, sniffed the smells of the afternoon, and then set off walking down through the orchard, pausing in the shade of the apple tree. He put his strong snout into the ground and began pushing, digging, and rooting. He felt very happy. He had plowed up quite a piece of ground before anyone noticed him. Mrs. Zuckerman was the first to see him. She saw him from the kitchen window and immediately shouted for the men. So Wilbur's out. And that is the part of the story that goes with the chapter title, Escape. I'm going to break this chapter into two parts. We're going to find out what happens now that somebody's noticed him. Okay. Look for this recording, the second part of the recording coming later. Okay. Bye.